Are you worried for your safety? Do you fear the consequences of speaking out?
I am, but at the same time, I'm not. And there is this sentence kept ringing in my head, is not to speak against evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act. And one of them just says, you know, it's so amazing to have a former enemy as a friend.
Salam, first of all, thank you so very much, not only for joining me here, but for sharing your story. It's incredible, and I'm really, really grateful.
And thank you for having me, and thank you for everything you're doing. You are one of the voices I always like to listen to, sharp, clear, and don't waver in moral issue. Thank you.
You are amazing, and I have no doubt that everyone who listens and watches this will feel the exact same about you afterwards. So I can't wait to help share your voice. Let's sum up your entire childhood background and bring us to where you are now, if you can. Just give us an idea of who you are and where you came from.
I grew up in Egypt, born in the mid-60s, and my childhood in so many ways it actually was shaped by Israel. My earliest childhood memory was in September 27, 1970, where my mom, waking me from afternoon nap, crying and saying me, Nasser died. Was the president in Egypt at the time. So that's the earliest thing I remember. Grow up actually, instead of listening to lullabies, was listening to songs about Nasser and his revolution, and instead of listening to audiobook at the time, was listening to his speeches. Became a socialist, or Nasserized to be more precise, and I found that it's a little bit too naive, turned into Trotskyite, turned into Al-Gama'a Islamiyya, and then deist, and left Islam altogether. So that's, in the nutshell, that's my background. And I still
Why did you leave Islam? What was the catalyst for you? I'm assuming it was a whole series of moments, but was there a time where you went, this is it for me?
Several things actually took a few years, but ultimately every belief system in the world must answer 4 questions and must answer them consistently. How did we get here? What's the problem? How you solve the problem? How does it end? Every philosophy, every belief system does that. So Islam is incoherent in answering the question. It's self-contradictory, and it actually doesn't answer the problem that it's supposed to solve. My dad reported me to the Egyptian state security, where I got arrested and spent a year in jail. And the rest of
For
the
the
family.
sole reason of leaving Islam, for rejecting Islam.
Yes, but that wasn't what's stated
Yeah.
as a court, because Egyptian constitution guarantees freedom of religion, but at the same time there is a law that forbids blasphemy. So their legal case is, because you left Islam, then you blasphemed. We're not jailing you for being a Christian, but because you're calling Muhammad a liar, basically. And so, and the rest of the family disowned me. Haven't had any relationship with any of them since '94.
Wow. Talk to me about the attitude that you were raised with towards Israel, towards the Jews. Do you understand why there is such a level of hate from people from your former community directed at them, given the way you were raised, what you were taught to believe?
Every problem we had, 70s and 80s, were basically that it's blamed on Israel. Whatever social problem would happen, rising prices, corruption in the government, and then it's the Palestinian cause, it's Israel, it's the Zionists doing this. And one of the things was for me was personally was so sad and actually cried when Sadat visited Jerusalem to have the peace deal. It's like I saw it personally as a betrayal.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
and ironically, my secondary school, the Israeli embassy was between my school and my home, and I would have to pass by it twice a day. And I was spit on the embassy every single time I passed by it.
So Salam, take me from childhood and where you were, which we've covered, to now, where not only have you left Islam, but you are now a voice for Israel and a voice for the
I
Jewish community.
I actually wasn't. It's when I discovered this whole network, I decided to actually restudy the whole history of the Arab-Israeli conflict, going back to the 1800. It took me years, and by the early 2000, it's like, okay, the whole Palestinianism or the whole story is just that, a story, a historical fiction, where you have event that happen, but it's manipulated, retold from the Nakba to the land acquisition to the whole war, where from the Arab perspective or Arabic speaking perspective, that's it's extremely Manichaean, where Palestinians never do anything wrong. They are always right regardless, including, making someone like Dalal Maghrabi, who killed 11 children, a hero, and named schools after her. And from the Israelis, where it can do absolutely nothing right.
Yeah.
So I washed my hand of the whole thing, and that was that. And I didn't do anything about it other than I don't care. Then October 7 happened, and it took me, yeah, like for a couple of decades, whatever is happening between the Palestinians and Israeli, none of my business. When October 7 happened, it took me something like about a month to actually comprehend what happened. I choose not to watch any of the videos because I know exactly, I have seen it, what
Yeah.
Hamas, PLO, PFLP are capable of. I lived in Lebanon. I heard the stories during the Lebanese civil war. I was with some of them in prison in Egypt. So I know exactly what they did. So, and about probably November 9th, 2023, I got an X and I just said, okay, I don't care if I lose friends. Israel had the right to exist, and every single person who died since October 7 is on Hamas. Uh, Funny enough, that's when I found that I'm not an only voice. I actually didn't lost a lot of Arab friends, called me traitor, Zionist, bot, and
Yeah.
all the rest. But I gained a family. One of the first people I know, Cheryl, the lady who introduced you to us, and she told me her story. First time I came across her, she sent me a video about October 7. And I said, I'm sorry, I cannot watch this if that's what I think it is, because I don't want to watch that. I know what they are capable of. She actually turned out apologizing for me for sending it. And then she told me her story, losing her entire family in a suicide bomb in Abbas in the second Intifada, and an absolutely amazing person. So,
She is. And
and she's
for those listening and watching along, most people will know her, but Cheryl wrote it on Twitter is her handle. So on X. So you have to follow her.
and she is a history nerd. So I started to collaborate with her, writing long posts, and I thought, okay, because she can't talk, and I thought, by doing some research and give it to her, she can post it, especially things in Arabic. I will translate it, and she will post
Yeah.
it. I will amplify her voice. Turned out that she actually amplified mine. And we started working with her, Shoshana, Liquid Fairy, group of others, where we start doing long posts about the whole land acquisition, the origin of Palestinians, the Nazi connection with the Palestinian from the 30s to the 90s. And until then, I have never been to Israel. I've been to the Israeli borders from all four sides, from Lebanon,
Wow.
Jordan, Syria, Egypt, but I've never been there until last May. another friend I met, an ex, was visiting, and I went there and met her and her husband, because she knew the place, and unexpected, life transforming visit, because I was extremely anxious as an Egyptian going to Israel. I don't know how I'm going to be perceived to start with.
Yeah.
Every single person I've met who actually knew I'm Egyptian was extremely welcome, extremely hospitable. And one of the most touching thing, we were waiting for Shoshana in the lobby, and there were group of three conservative Orthodox Jews were having on a Saturday, they're having their Shabbat Kaddish, blessing over the wine and bread. And they actually
Yeah.
invited me to share with them. And one
Wow.
of them just says, it's so amazing to have a former enemy as a friend. It's like that attitude, the mentality, and the resilience they were showing was amazing. Because Shoshana knew people there, I've met with some people through her, like Glenn Cohen. You probably have met him. He's the chief psychologist who debriefed all the freed hostages. And one of the most touching thing, because I can understand it psychologically, he was saying all the 140 released hostages, you asked them the same question. If you could reverse the clock and be elsewhere and don't not to get taken, to avoid all the horror you've been through, would you do it? And every single one of them said no.
Wow.
And I said I actually understand this, because I've been to jail, nothing compared to what they've been through, but that really horrible experience actually made them stronger.
Yeah.
And they said that's exactly what a lot of them said. They said no, but that experience made me. And and I was doing all of this anonymous. Of course, I was accused of being an Israeli Jewish bot,
Yeah.
and all the rest. And then I saw other people, what they actually had sacrificed, including you, by speaking out. And there is this sentence kept ringing in my head. It's falsely attributed to Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Is not to speak against evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. And then I decided to ask Sherry to introduce me to you, so we can do this.
You are incredible. It is one thing to be able to look at information and to educate yourself and to change a perspective that has been so deeply embedded in you from childhood. It is then another thing entirely to come out publicly and to try and show others the way. It is insanely brave, particularly given what happens to people who do what you do. Are you worried for your safety? Do you fear
Uh,
the consequences of speaking out?
I am, but at the same time, I'm not worried, because I know exactly. It's not just people in Israel, people around Europe and America. You get Jewish get firebombed, stabbed, but so what? I can get hit by a bus crossing the road, and it's like, you know, uh, I believe something you said before, that's a lot, and when you're talking about Australia, that's the majority of Australian actually don't go by the opera house and scream gas the Jews,
Yes.
but they are worried and afraid to speak out. And a lot of Europeans don't actually understand, because they took the narrative as the story designed by Nazi, where they believe almost everything they believe is absolute lie. You see people marching in the
Yes.
streets with the Hamas and Iran flag. It's this disconnected from reality. Their voices might be louder, they have the number, but we do have to speak out. And it's the funny thing is, the entire Palestinianism, in almost every single case, they either share fake story, false video, fabricated code, I remember someone on Twitter was trying to prove Palestinian people as a people, not as a geographical location, existed. So he shared quotation from 6 books, 7 books from 19th century. And actually, because from the 19th century, all the books are on the Internet Archive, and I went on and I looked in all the books, every single quotation was faked. Doesn't exist in the book. So I came to the point where a lot of the story shared even by mainstream media, BBC, CNN, I
Yeah.
don't take it as real because, guys, your sources lie, and they don't consider lying as something that bad, because there is a concept in Islam where Muhammad said that war is deception. So they consider deception is part of the strategy. So whatever comes from the other side, yeah, I am going to take that with a pound of salt, not just a grain.
Can I just say to you, it should not be so impressive to me that you are someone who just decided to look into it for yourself. That should be, and that's exactly what I did. It's what most people who are on the right side of history have done. And it's not, I'm not saying it's easy, it's time consuming, it's often challenging, it is uncomfortable at times, but you didn't take someone's word for it. You went and restudied and you found sources that you trusted, and you questioned everything. So many people don't. The vast majority of people don't. How do we get the rest of the world, and particularly the Muslim population? There is a large Muslim population who I genuinely believe they are very decent, kind, honest people who want peace. How do we shift the narrative in their minds? Because it's so deeply embedded, like it was for you. How do we encourage people to seek truth?
When it comes to Israel or Jews in general, it's changing the narrative is a worldview changing, because it's not a political conflict. It's never a political conflict. It was never about the land. It's about Muslim had no problem historically with Jews as long as they were second-class citizens. But as sovereign Jews, that's incomprehensible to the vast majority of Muslims. Francis Schaeffer once said, people catch the worldview the way they catch measles. They don't know where it came from. So the narrative changing has to be on an individual level.
Yeah.
You
Because you said you met your first Jewish Israeli person and you were like,
when I was about
wow,
25.
if everyone could just meet one, if everyone, it's those one-on-one interactions.
Because it's the same problem you had in Europe, the European Jew, the wandering Jew, didn't exist.
Yeah.
It was a fiction. There is something I looked up, which was for me was quite amazing. During the French Revolution, the number of Jews in France were about 50,000, were 1/5 of 1%. And the number of entry, they digitized all the entries by writer during that time about the Jews, was something like about 4.5 million entry. So it was a lot of French authors were occupied by the Jews and what the Jews doing, even though they actually didn't exist in France. The most anti-Semitic country you come across are the country that actually doesn't have any Jews in it, because
that is brilliant.
You create a bogeyman, a facade of whatever else your society, and you put it on the Jews.
Because reality, exposure to it would dispel the myth. People would go, wait a minute, they're not devils, they're not evil, they're not, you're right. It's easier to maintain that perception when no Jews are there to dispel the myth.
And in Europe, now in Australia, they are white settler colonialists. Actually, the majority of them, you've been to Israel, the majority of everybody, when I was in Israel, everybody started speaking to me in Hebrew because they assumed I'm a Yemeni Jew. It's like, because I look like everybody else walking in the street.
They are the worst apartheid state I've ever seen. They do apartheid very badly in Israel.
And they do land acquisition very badly. They had Sinai, which was, and they give it back to us, and so the whole narrative is actually doesn't stand to scrutiny. It's not even a skin deep. It's a completely made up story where people just believe it because they watched a video in TikTok. I
Yeah,
spent over 10, 15 years reading about the subject, and I'm still finding and learning things that I didn't
yeah,
know. Uh, you know,
absolutely. Same, same.
so
Salam, I'm running out of time. You are phenomenal. I'm so glad that you've trusted me to help tell your story, and I cannot wait to watch your voice grow and grow and grow because you are such an important voice in this space. Thank you for your bravery, your advocacy, and your brilliant attitude to actually educating yourself and learning. It's so impressive. Thank you.
thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everything you've done too. You're absolutely amazing voice, and in spite of the cost you had to pay. Thank you.
I can't wait to meet you in real life. Thank you so much.